According to prevalent scientific thinking, the universe is in continuous expanding motion and consists of an inconceivable number of stars, planetary systems, and galaxies. The enormous tensions working within the universe are also far removed from our everyday lives. The core of one galaxy may be an all-engulfing concentration of matter, a black hole, which corresponds in mass to 2 billion suns. The American exobiologist Carl Sagan claims that the uniqueness of human beings is a great delusion, and that we are equally mistaken to think that our galaxy is in some way exceptional. Hundreds of billions of such galaxies probably exist. Over the past decades, science has launched several projects based on the transmission and detection of radio signals for contacting extraterrestrial civilizations. Many scientists, however, consider this quite unnecessary, as they themselves have already been in contact with alien forms of life. One of them was the world-famous brain researcher, Dr. John Lilly, who experienced the power of an unknown civilization in a very tangible way when he was on his way to Los Angeles in 1974. As his plane was approaching the airport, a message flashed through his head, saying that the sender of the message would cause, in 30 seconds, a breakdown in all electrical systems at the airport, and that the plane would have to land at another airport. Soon after this, the passengers on the plane heard the pilot announce that for some unknown reason, the airport's electrical systems had failed, and the plane would be diverted to another airport. Similarly, Dr. John Climo has been in contact with other forms of life. In his investigations, he's tried to approach them through altered states of consciousness.
We've heard of the phrase, life is like a dream, and our spiritual teachers say that we are about the business these days, these crucial times of waking from a dream into a kind of awakeness that we've heard about or have heard prophesied or hoped for in our dreams, so to speak, would come true. If you know the notion of a lucid dream, being aware of, becoming aware in the dream that you're dreaming, but not awakening from the dream, but now having like normal waking consciousness within the dream, that's called lucid dreaming. I am interested as a researcher in the analogy between regular dreaming and lucid dreaming and regular awakeness, which most of our human population is in the state of in normal awakeness. What my psychologist friend Charles Tart calls the consensus trance. He believes that daily waking consensus reality that we all share and think is objectively real is really like a trance state. We're in like a hypnotic state that we've done to each other from birth. And how do you awaken from that trance? That questions for me, it throws me into the area, another area of my interest, which is consciousness studies. Because there are many levels of consciousness. There are many altered states of consciousness. And the consciousness that most of us fellow human beings share when we're awake is a very limited, constrained, blinded state of consciousness that only allows the experience of certain things. If you alter that baseline normal waking consciousness and the whole multidimensional psychoenergetic system that it is part of, when you alter that whole psychoenergetic system, that consciousness state, it allows you to perceive, interact with, and affect and receive information from other levels of reality. My research leads me to believe that we as a human species on this planet are evolving in consciousness, that our individual psychoenergetic systems, the complex superimposed multi-leveled energy systems that we each are, not just our physical bodies, but only subtler levels our science is only beginning to fathom. We're going to find survival of physical death more apparent to us, meaning that those who die physically are going to more readily be able to communicate back and forth with those of us still in physical bodies. This is within our lifetime. We will have more and more of these experiences. Similarly, contact with extraterrestrials, as we call them, and those who live not only on other planets, but other planets on other dimensions. Extra-dimensionals, because it's a house of many mansions. It's a tremendous new Copernican revolution we're going through, within which we're realizing we're not alone.
Some 100,000 years ago, an outer layer called the cortex began to form around the human brain. The cortex allows human beings to think, to reflect, and examine things, to be individuals. The cortex is estimated to have been in its present form for about 40,000 years. In the past, spirits were thought to use dreams to guide people. For this reason, our ancient forefathers gave such great significance to dreams. For the indigenous peoples of North America, contact with the gods and the supernatural world is part of everyday life, and many learn at an early age to direct their lives with the help of dreams. When the peoples of the ancient world analyzed their dreams, they looked for their fate in the dreams and interpreted their messages with resignation. The Old and the New Testaments contain many examples of dreams and how they affected people's thinking and actions. Jacob dreamed that he saw a ladder reaching up into heaven, a stairway for the angels of God to go up and come down. However, it was Jacob's son Joseph who was one of the most famous visionaries and interpreters of dreams. Only he was able to interpret correctly Pharaoh's dreams of the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. Also, Joseph's own dreams were prophetic. Two of the best known foretold of his future position of power as regent to the Pharaoh. Psychologists consider dreams as almost invisible roots of man's conscious thoughts. Even ordinary objects and ideas may acquire a powerful significance and seriously startle people. Nightmares are often disguised warnings which seek to turn our conscious attention to a hidden threat. Therefore, they may foretell of certain situations long before the events actually take place. These cases are not necessarily a miracle or a premonition, only an active awareness of the subconscious. Dreams may also act as a path to the ultimate source of creation and even refer to somewhere beyond our subconscious. The composer Franz Schubert left a letter which was not to be opened until 50 years after his death. In the letter, he says enigmatically, "None of my compositions is my own work. I have received them all from the world of spirits through dreams." Sigmund Freud's understanding of dreams was that they are disguised thoughts and emotions from the unconscious mind, while Jung insisted that their task is to subtly restore balance to our psyche. How then do dreams originate?
Dreams originate from a person's emotional setting. The images connect to this state of mind. If you see bad things, you may reject these images, creating a paradoxical dream with conflicting feeling and imagery. The factors creating the dreams vary strongly. Your hopes or fears may come true in a dream. Recent or very old, even childhood incidents that we don't even remember may surface in dreams. If you are drunk and fall asleep, the dream impulse may not be strong enough. If you've been drunk for several days, the material in the brain can't come out as images. Then the brain will send out these images when you're awake, creating delirium. You start seeing these images during the day. The same phenomenon occurs when a shipwrecked person has drifted for days without any sleep. They start imagining things and hearing helicopters coming to save them. If your ego has been crushed for some reason, you may develop schizophrenia, which creates daytime images. You see more or less unreal images. You may think you're encountering gods and demons. You may convey a message from the gods. You might not understand that the images and sounds come from within yourself. I'm not trying to deny the existence of medial powers. However, in many cases, the person has been deranged.
Anita dreamt that she lived in a toilet with a mirror covering an entire wall. She stood naked in front of the mirror and looked at herself. She had long hair hanging down to her lower back, like Botticelli's Venus, and a man's testicles. She wondered how could she have testicles as she was a woman. Anita dreamt that she was going to a dance at her old school. Her girlfriend, Karina, was wearing a clerical cassock and was on her way to preach at a religious meeting. On their way, the two women made a diversion into a graveyard. It was dark, although the main path was lit. Karina wanted to make love to Anita beside the stone wall. The two women lay together, and Anita squeezed Karina's breasts, which fitted her hand perfectly. Later, Anita asked if Karina had had an orgasm. Karina admitted she had, although only a small one. A light shone on Karina's white lower body. For the past 30 years, the Finnish writer Anita Konka has written down her dreams. She has also studied old books of dreams and psychoanalytical and mythocritical interpretations of dreams. Konka's dream fantasies are incredible adventure stories, full of suspense, sex, and violence. According to Konka, dreams are related to and reflect the dreamer's life situation. But dreams are also enjoyable, a nightly adventure and entertainment series with the dreamer as scriptwriter, director, and actor.
Mä muistan itse hyvin vähäisen aikaa sitten mä näin hämähäkistä unta. Se oli myrkyllinen hämähäkki. Mä pysähdyin, heräsin tietenkin, että aha, nyt tässä tulee unen viesti ja uni haluaa mulle jotain tietoa itsestäni. Mietin, mitä hämähäkki voi tarkoittaa. Sillä on monta tarkoitusta. Se on niin kuin luovuuden symboli, mutta se on myös kuoleman symboli, jossa on ristilukki. Ja vanhat unikirjat sanoo, että se tuo rahaa ja onnea, koska vanhoissa unikirjoissa aina kaikki tapahtuu päinvastoin. Mutta mä otin tämän asian kyllä psykologisesti ja mietin, että aha, hämähäkki, sehän kietoo verkkoja. Ja mitä mä olen nyt tekemässä ihmissuhteessani. Ja mulle tuli sellainen, että aha, mä yritän kietoa verkkoa erään tietyn ihmisen ympäri. Siis minä olen se hämähäkki, jolloin mä sain tietoa itsestä, että mä olen nyt hyvin mustasukkainen ja mun pitäisi muuttaa käyttäytymistä ja asennetta. Siis tällaista tietoa unista saa paljon ja tämä on hyvin hyödyllistä tietoa mun mielestä. Mä olen oppinut kyllä paljon myös käsittelemään ihmissuhteita, kun mä oon pysähtynyt miettimään, että mitä tämä uni merkitsee. Mutta mä oon sitten sitä mieltä, että tämä meidän kulttuuri, jos me ei oltaisi nähty lentounia, me ei oltaisi ruvettu keksimään koskaan lentokonetta, jos me ei oltaisi nähty vedenalaisia unia, me ei oltaisi keksitty näitä sukellusveneitä ja miten mennään veden alle. Siis, että kaikki alkaa oikeastaan tästä alitajunnasta, alitajunnan kuvista ja visioista ja toteutuu sitten, materialisoituu. Me toteutetaan meidän unemme. Sillä tavoin unet ja kulttuuri on koko ajan toistensa kanssa tekemisissä, mutta myös unet voi vaikuttaa politiikkaankin. Aika dramaattinen tutkimus tästä, miten yhteiskunta vaikuttaa unimaailmaan, on se, vuonna 1933 amerikkalainen tutkijanainen rupesi keräämään juutalaisten unia Saksassa. Ja hän keräsi niitä vuoteen 1938, eli 5 vuoden ajan. Ja sinä ajanjaksona Hitler pääsi vaikuttamaan niin paljon, että näiden juutalaisten unet muuttuvat yhä ahdistuneemmiksi. Ne eivät nähneet enää kompensaatiounia, eli näitä, joissa ahdistava tilanne muuttuu kauniiksi, koska ihminen tarvitsee toivoa pystyäkseen elämään. Siis kaikki toivo meni unista pois ja loppujen lopuksi ne eivät enää nähneet unia, koska niillä ei ollut mitään mahdollisuutta selviytyä tästä tilanteesta. Että tällä tavoin 3. valtakunta pääsi sensuroimaan koko ihmisten unimaailman.
Herkistä korvasi kuulemaan sitä sanomaa. Hän on varjo ihmisen.
Dreams have an important place in the lives of medially and artistically gifted people. They find it easy to interpret the symbolic language of dreams, and the dreams act as a channel to unseen worlds. Uncommonly often, they have had UFO experiences disguised as dreams, which have later revealed themselves as typical abductions, and which have, almost without exception, proved to have a consequential effect on their lives.
Näen usein unia, jotka toteutuvat konkreettisesti. Eli ne tapahtuvat sellaisena, mitä ne näenkin. Mutta suurin osa kuitenkin unistani ovat symbolisia. Useimmiten uneni toteutuvat noin 6 kuukauden, vuoden sisällä. Yksi tapaus, joka oli hyvin merkittävä, oli sukulaismieheni hirvikolari, jonka näin unena niin, että leijona raateli hänen kasvonsa. Ja näin tapahtuikin sikäli, että hänen kasvonsa olivat aivan verestä punaiset ja niitä jouduttiin kirurgisesti moneen kertaan operoimaan. Myös olen nähnyt luonnonmullistusunia. Rotat minun unissani ainakin merkitsevät kulkutautia tai jotain pahaa tautia. Ja yleensä linnut, mehiläiset, nämä ovat tietäneet sitä, että maailmalla tapahtuu luonnon mullistuksia, katastrofia, tulvia, myrskyjä. Ja onpa sattunut niinkin, että olemme tyttäremme kanssa nähneet samanlaista unta. Ja tätä on sattunut parikin kertaa. Eli heräämme aamulla, olemme hämmästyksissä, kerromme toinen toisillemme, mitä unta näimme, ja totesimme, että se jopa toteutui. Mutta toisaalta otan nämä enneudet varoituksena, opetuksena siitä, että voimme estää ehkä nämä mahdolliset onnettomuudet.
Early studies indicate that about 50% of all unforeseen extrasensory experiences occur during sleep, implying a link between sleep and paranormal phenomena. It was also discovered that such experiences are more common at night than in the daytime. Since the early 1960s, Dr. Montague Ullman has studied the interdependence between dreams and clairvoyance. Dr. Ullman's research and other parapsychological studies over the past decades have shown that sleep also improves a person's sensitivity to receive other paranormal phenomena. Some mediums have, for example, been able to have repeated precognitive dreams on randomly selected subjects. Ullman's research is based on Nathaniel Kleitman's revolutionary discovery that the rapid eye movements of a sleeping person indicate that the sleeper is dreaming. In his investigations, Ullman sent telepathic images of well-known paintings enclosed in envelopes to a person who was sleeping. When the person was found to be dreaming, she was woken up and asked to describe the dream. Finally, outside observers were asked to assess how well the dreams had corresponded with the paintings. The results showed that the probability of the test being successful by accident was at best less than 1 in 1,000.
I think you'd come to the conclusion that as of this time, telepathy, clairvoyance, and precognition, as well as psychokinesis, is fairly well established. People can benefit from their dream life if they do the work necessary to translate the pictures that they produce while they're dreaming into meaningful information about themselves. When we're awake, we are social beings and we have a social facade, and we have very ingenious ways of hiding from others things about ourselves we don't want them to see or we don't want to see.
Shamanism is sometimes known in the Western world as neo-shamanism. In its most original form, shamanism is known among the indigenous peoples of the northern regions, where the community's magical religious life revolves around the shaman. The shamans may have several souls, men 5, women 4. Unlike in the primitive cultures of more southerly latitudes, the northern shamans are not under the influence of spirits, but seek an altered state of consciousness through willpower, during which they travel to extrasensory worlds.
Researchers of telepathic dreams have found interesting things. They've said that when you're dreaming, you're in direct contact with the entire cosmic reality. We can assume this is the actual level of being human. At his level, we reach the essence of our humanity as images of God. Our everyday life is a mere shadow of the world where we really could live. When sleeping, you actually die. It is said that dreams are the twin brother of death.
In surviving indigenous cultures of Siberia, dreams are a second reality which the shamans enter through rituals. How then do they use the state of altered consciousness?
The belief in several souls is key to shamanism. In dreams and rituals, one of the shaman's souls leaves the body. It takes another form. It could be a bird which allows you to enter the skies. It could be a bear, a wolf, or a moose down here among humans. It could be a fish, and then the soul studies the underwater world. It is thought the shaman soul takes these forms in a ritual. Another possibility are dreams. Dreams are possible for anyone, not only shamans. A normal person can reach the same reality in their dreams as a shaman does in a ritual. Hence, the soul can leave the body, and most shamanistic experiences are out-of-body experiences. You could think that dreams among the northern peoples that are still being recorded in hospital records, psychiatric records, have their roots in the shamanistic tradition. I think that the dream world of northern Finns and Lapps shows that they have a shamanistic background.
Although dreams are of paramount importance in the life of shamans, their contact with nature is of equal importance. Among the Nanai tribe who live on the river Amur, concern for the balance of nature is always present in the thoughts and actions of the shaman. He never digs the earth or breaks the branch off a living tree. Archaeologists claim that shamanism is a phenomenon which is at least 20,000 years old. Shamans were probably the first storytellers, healers, holy men, and magicians, which is why shamanism competes for the title of the oldest profession in the world. In a closed tribal community, all share a belief in the power of the shaman, which clearly intensifies the efficiency of his magic. Shamans either inherit their calling or are selected for it by the extrasensory world. In the latter case, they may fall victim to a sudden and serious illness and recover only by healing themselves, or fall into a trance or a dream, during which the spirits of the dead inform them of their selection. Also, their way of leaving this world is unusual. When they know that their hour has come, they embark on a long trip to bury their drums, in order not to leave anything of themselves on this earth. Usually they find enough time for this, and only a few drums have ever been found. With his drum, the shaman symbolically buries his individuality and his ego.
This drum belonged to Maria Petrovna. She is an Nanai shamanka. I met her in the winter of 1991. She died in February 1992. Before she died, she spent a week in a Russian hospital. They say she refused to die. She had her drum there, and she drummed it for a week until 1 hour before her death. It dropped from her hand. They say she was such a powerful shaman that she took 2 boatfuls of men with her. The fishermen drowned in River Amur. One of them was my fishing buddy in 1992. Attached to Maria's drum is the bag in which she carried it. This is the stick with which she drummed to the end. Here's an interesting set of small bags. They are the spirits of dead children. Omia in the Nanai language. They say the Omias sit in the tops of the trees of life and chirp like little birds. It is part of the Nanai cosmology. The little birds singing in the tree of life. To unbaptized children, or rather to nameless children. The Nanai don't baptize their children. They don't know much about Christianity there. It was interesting to see an icon on Maria's wall. Her husband had given it to her. He also gave me her drum.
Although death in its different forms is ever present in man's everyday life, its mystery consumes his soul.
What happens in death? Confucius students asked their master what death was. He said, "Why ask about death when you don't know life?" Different religions see this in different ways. The Buddhist nirvana is like a candle going out. Man's life goes out when the flame goes out. One could also say that when a Christian, Muslim, or a Jew yearn for an immortal soul, a Buddhist yearns to let his soul leave this cursed cycle. The Christian religion preaches the immortality of the soul, but also that the body is resurrected. Not even Jesus gave his disciples any clear answer to what happens after death. The epistles of Paul speak more about it. Maybe the thought that they were the last generation never to know death was so important to the first Christian generation that they expected to die together, which would lead to a new world.
In today's organized society, death is an institution which we keep well away from our everyday lives. Our mind, caught up in the web of the intellect, sees death as the antithesis of life and pushes the thought of it as far into the future as possible, in the hope of being able to face the end of life, when the time comes, with serenity and dignity. Kalervo Nissilä, a Finnish hospital chaplain, has seen death from every angle during the many years that he's accompanied people to their last frontier. He has repeatedly observed that in their final hour, people who have let themselves be lulled by their own omnipotence experience emotions they had no idea existed, including rage in the face of their helplessness. Those who have managed to return from the threshold of death often have strange stories to tell, while clinically dead, people may observe their own bodies and medical treatment given them so accurately that their doctors are amazed. In this spirit form, they go to see their friends and relations and may even do them some useful service. After such an experience, people see the meaning of their earthly journey in a totally new light.
Man is not a permanent resident of Earth. We live here for 70, maybe 80 years, and then our remains are buried in the cemetery. Our spiritual being starts its journey to its Creator in heaven. There are many views on reincarnation. The Urantia book says that we are born into a new body when our time is over, some even 3 days after their death. The meaning of the chain of reincarnations is to develop man into a pure spirit, to be able to ascend into the spirit world close to his Creator.
The world's major religions offer narrow and conflicting explanations of death and reincarnation, and often only increase people's anxieties. The views of the Finnish writer Oskar Reponen about life after death were totally reversed after a personal tragedy shook his life. In 1973, he lost his son, Topi, in a tragic road accident. Soon afterwards, his marriage broke down. Despite all this, he was told by the well-known Finnish medium Svea Rihnau that he would soon become a father again, and that Topi would be reborn. The news sounded totally incredible.
At first, I was very suspicious about it all. During the trance, she said she saw my father wearing a uniform. My father had been a colonel, so she got that right. I thought she dug it up from somewhere and knew it. Then she said a little boy of 10 would come soon. He demanded to be let forth, and we couldn't stop him. So, let us welcome him, she said. She said he'd appear right behind Topi, looking very sad, raising his 5 fingers. At the moment, the boy left the room, where the medium had seen him with her inner eyes. She said she saw the boy's death. She said it happens near Kaivopuisto Park. A car is coming in the street, and the boy runs out into the street. She can't stop it since it happened many years ago. Now the car will crush him and kill him. Then Topi shouted, "It's Arvo!" Arvo was the caretaker's son, whom we had seen get hit by a truck. This sign that I didn't understand at the time was clear. The 5 fingers. Exactly 5 months later, we were run over by a car in Spain. Topi died there 4 days later.
Oskar Reponen's second son, Tony, was born on December the 12th, 1976.
About Tony's birth, I'd like to say that I'd received a message about it long before I married his mother. I thought it impossible that he'd be born on December 14, 1976, as I'd been told over and over. My wife joked about it, and she wasn't even pregnant then. Our friends laughed about it too. During all my meetings with this medium, my son Topi declared 7 times that he'd be reborn in 1976, saying he'd be needed on earth, but his spiritual twin was needed in heaven. All I can say is he was born on the date the medium had given.
The Finnish composer Erkki Ertama has had some amazing experiences in his life, which strongly point to life after death. And in many other ways too, he has been in touch with worlds invisible to human beings. One summer evening in 1991, he was returning by car from his summer cottage in southern Finland when he spotted a strange silver-grey translucent cloud, which soon solidified into a 3-meter-long human shape. At the same time, Ertama was overtaken by a feeling of terror, the like of which he had never experienced before. The figure disappeared from sight at the end of a 100-meter-long stretch of road. He had also encountered something strange on his way to the cottage at precisely the same place. A key had fallen from somewhere above, and contrary to all the laws of physics, had stuck to the windscreen of his car. When Ertama stopped the car to find out where the key had come from, he could see no living being anywhere around. He later discovered that the key was similar to those used in Finland for bicycles and outboard motors. Erkki Ertama is convinced that man's journey on Earth is guided from other levels of reality, and he fully appreciates the unlimited potential this opens up for him as an artist. But 15 years ago, something happened that exceeded all his expectations.
This paper shows the clearest evidence of rebirth I've ever seen. This is my hand, and here are various symbols.
Joista kohta sitten kerron tarkemmin.
The idea of consciousness extending beyond the grave has become very familiar to Erkki Ertama over the past years when writing poetry and adapting it for music. Although the poems originate from his own pen, he wants to take no credit for them, as he feels that he has only acted as an intermediary. In fact, Ertama has been told by a medium that the actual writer of the poems is the well-known Finnish poet Eino Leino, who died in the early part of the century. Usually the poems emerge in the middle of the night, with Ertama waking up to the beginning of a new poem attaching itself to his consciousness. Once he starts writing it down, the rest of the poem unfolds spontaneously. Ertama believes the phenomenon is not automatic writing, because through the poems are filtered his vocabulary and life experience. The reality of reincarnation was proved to Ertama in a very strange and personal way. Some time ago he met a total stranger, an Indian, who spoke to him in impeccable English. To begin with, the man gave a detailed list of the major events of Ertama's life with such amazing accuracy that Ertama suspected that the man had found out in advance about his past. Then, the stranger described Ertama's future and the difficulties that awaited him.
Then he asked me to lay my hand on a blank sheet of paper. Then he filled the shape of my palm with these symbols. Then he folded it and asked for an envelope, saying that I'd get into a difficult situation the next spring, and I wouldn't be able to find a way out of it. He told me to go alone to a quiet place with this sheet and lay my hand on it and think about him, and he will immediately come back to Finland. This really happened. 3 hours after I'd done this, my doorbell rang. And it was my Indian friend. I asked, since when do Concords fly from New Delhi to Europe? He said he'd known it was coming and had come to Bern to wait for my signal. As my own intuition channels opened, I had a dream vision that told me that in a previous life, I had married his sister in India, causing a terrible scandal. He had decided to kill me. Now, he paid back his karma debt. Joanna, sleep.
Parapsychologists have examined reincarnation from several angles. UFO research too has revealed a great deal of reincarnation-related material. Under hypnotic regression, psychotherapists have discovered abductions by UFOs in their patients' past, of which the patients themselves had no idea. Further investigations have in some cases indicated that a person remembers having lived on another planet and may divulge advanced technical data which has surprised even the experts. However, much more common are regression stories in which a person remembers having lived on Earth before his or her present life. Statistical studies indicate that stories situated in past ages accurately follow the world's population distribution, both chronologically and societally. Therefore, some researchers are of the opinion that the idea of reincarnation should be regarded as a third influence on the formation of personality, in addition to heredity and environmental factors.
We should bear in mind that they're not always real reincarnation experiences. Reima Kapman, a Finnish psychiatrist, conducted a survey on reincarnation experiences. He had people relive previous lives under hypnosis. His conclusion was that these experiences were a product of their multiple personalities. However, the American scientist Ian Stevenson, who might be the most famous reincarnation scientist, says hypnosis tests produce the least reliable results. Many therapies actually set out to deny the existence of paranormal phenomena. Still, people experience them constantly. A very common experience is being a Jew or a German in Germany during World War II. What are they bludgeoning you with? With an iron rod. Are they beating you? Yes. Now I will show you a video shot during therapy. She has lived hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. She is in a desert somewhere. She is a little black girl, either an invalid or somehow retarded, and her mother has left her to die in the desert. Going over these experiences has a healing effect. It lessens fear of darkness and other anxieties. A person who's been washed off the deck into the sea during a thunderstorm in a previous life has now overcome his fear of storms.
In pre-industrial societies, man encountered the world of supernatural phenomena, usually after falling ill and resorting to the help of folk healers. The principal Finnish traditional remedies were massage, bloodletting and staunching, bone setting, and various types of bath. For the ancient Finns, the sauna was a holy place where every possible ailment was treated, from skin rashes and asthma to stammering and anxiety. Ritualistic numbers and charms, as well as prayer and energy transfer, had an important role in healing. In this respect, ancient healing skills are connected directly with psychic healing as we know it today. The case of Ulla Sainio, a little girl from northern Finland, has points of contact with psychic healing. Today, she's an energetic schoolgirl who cycles the long distance to school that's common in the sparsely populated areas of northern Finland. Now, at the age of 10, she's in perfect health. However, all was not well when she was an infant. When she was 1 year old, she fell ill with a high temperature, and according to her mother, Leena Sainio, a specialist nurse, the girl was given what amounted to a death sentence. Ulla had repeated infections, she lost weight, and her growth came to a halt. This was followed by breathing difficulties, and the little patient was found to have congestive cardiomyopathy, or enlarged heart, and a consequent valvular disorder. A viral infection of the heart muscle was thought to be the likely cause of her ailments. Ulla's health was so poor that her chances of recovery seemed slight. At this stage, her mother turned to Terttu Oksanen, a psychic healer, for help. Ulla's condition began to improve, and after a year, she was fully recovered. What was the likelihood of a miracle in Ulla's recovery? Unfortunately, we were unable to obtain a statement from the girl's own doctor, so we had to ask an outside physician for an opinion. As the prognosis for heart muscle infections is good, Ulla's enlarged heart and its ensuing dysfunction could have cured themselves naturally, making the miracle theory unnecessary. Leena Sainio, however, is convinced that her daughter's recovery was brought about by psychic healing.
Se syy, miksi suostuin kertomaan tästä Ullan tapauksesta on siinä, että tiedän monia ihmisiä, jotka parantajan kautta ovat saaneet avun vaivaansa, mutta eivät suostu kertomaan siitä eri syistä. Osaan tietysti tietyt uskonlohkot ja kirkko on onnistunut pelottelemaan, että tämmöiset parantumiset on saatanasta lähtöisin.